Hey everybody, and welcome to the buffet with Tony Yarber. We're excited about having you here today. I'm glad to be able to be, as the old folks will say, among the land of the living. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we got a really good show today. I want to encourage you, if you would, go on and share. Let everybody know that the buffet with Tony Yarber is live, and we're getting ready to deal with some stuff that I think all of us want to talk about, hear about, engage about. I also want to encourage you to be a part of the show. I want to encourage you to comment, call in 1-800-492-5186, 1-800-492-5186. I want to encourage you to be a part of the conversation today. Also, won't you go on and like, share, hit that share button. I also want to ask you, if you would, to help us reach our star goals for the month. And finally, I always want to encourage you, to those of you who are looking for a space to promote your business. You're looking for a space to promote what you're doing in the community. I am always looking for sponsorship here at the buffet. We're proud to have some dynamic sponsors. You'll hear about those sponsors more during the break, but always excited about being able to share and talk about Pastor Sherry Tate's book, Meet Mason. Always glad to talk about the dynamic Earth Blend coffee that I, as a coffee drinker, yesterday was National Coffee Day. I don't know if y'all knew that or not. Yesterday was National Coffee Day, so I had to make sure I got my coffee in, got my coffee drinking in. Yes, indeed, we did that. So we're looking for sponsorship. Come on in, be a part of this dynamic show. Also a part of what's happening here at We Believe Digital Podcast. Go on and subscribe to We Believe. We're broadcasting on Roku, YouTube, Facebook, WeBelieveStudios.com. So come on, be a part. Let us know how we can assist you. Whether we're talking about if you're looking for children's books in your preschool or your early childhood program, or you need some COVID solutions. SGE COVID Solutions is one of our other dynamic sponsors. So y'all, we wanted to make sure we shouted those folks out, let them know that we appreciate them for keeping things rolling and afloat around here. It has been a busy week in America, man. Not only just in Jackson, but it has been a busy week in America. And before I dive all the way into that busy week, I got to take a second. I want to shout out two schools right here in the big city of Jackson. One of those schools is Callaway High School. Callaway is a B-rated school. Those ratings were made public today. Callaway, a B-rated high school, the only B-rated high school in Jackson Public Schools. Shout out and kudos to Callaway High School. Shout out and kudos goes over there. Brother Johnson with Barack H. Obama Magnet School. Barack Obama Magnet is an elementary school, and they are not just an elementary school in Jackson, but they are the #1 elementary school in the state of Mississippi. And I don't know about you, but that makes me proud and excited. It makes me happy and glad. So shout out to all the amazing teachers, principals, administrators, those of you who are doing your thing in Jackson Public Schools, who are making our schools a better place for children to learn. Hey, our hats are off. Shout out to you. People do not give teachers they don't give folks there. And I know a lot of times it's because we may have bad experiences in schools. We might have bad experiences, and those experiences because I remember my favorite teachers. But you better know I believe the few teachers that I had that weren't hitting on two dead flies. I remember my first day, Dexter, in first grade. I had not been in public school or anything like that. Hey, Miss Angela Michelle, I had not been in public schools ever before. And they had back then in the 80s, the 80s, back then in the early 80s, they had these desks that lit up. They push the desk up, top comes, inside you got your little space where you keep your books and all that stuff. And the first day of school, I had there was something on my desk, I don't know. And I'm just exploring, man. I'm 5, 6 years old, whatever I was. I lift up the top, all the stuff falls on the floor, and the lady snapped out on me. I will never forget that. I'm almost 4 or 5 years old, and I remember that 40-year-old incident like it happened yesterday. So I get it. I get it. Sometimes it is hard to be able to get past your own lived experiences in order to give folks a chance. But we definitely have some really, really good teachers in Jackson Public Schools, really, really good administrators, really good counselors and support folks and instructional leaders and instructional specialists. And if you don't believe that, you need to go and ask some of these folks in these other districts who are always trying to steal Jackson teachers, who are always trying. No joke. I do consulting work, so I'm in different schools all the time, and it almost never fails. When I go to a school and there's a teacher from Jackson Public Schools in that school who has worked in Jackson at least 4 or 5 years, man, listen. I don't even have to work with that teacher. That teacher is already jamming, bringing new ideas and stuff to teams in other places. So don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. I'm proud of what they're doing at Jackson Public Schools. I'm proud of what the superintendent, Dr. Ed Green, and his team have been able to do, because I have said this before and I'm going to say it again because I think it's going to bode well in a later part of the conversation that we're going to have later on. But most people don't know this, or most people don't believe this, or most people have not thoroughly investigated this, but gentrification begins where schools fail. And y'all, and I'm gonna prove it. I don't mind. I'll walk you through my thought process. Gentrification always begins where schools fail. All right, let's historically walk through this stuff, particularly in Jackson. All right, so I told you that I went to school. I was in first grade in 1984, I guess, 1983 or 1984 or something. I was in first grade, and I went to Timberlawn Elementary. Well, Timberlawn is out southwest Jackson, extreme south. As a matter of fact, it's so extreme south. All of the schools that I went to, Timberlawn, Sywell, Forest Hill, all of those at one point were county schools, and they were also, when I was at Timberlawn, it was probably 80% white, 20% black. Now, I lived in the sub and went to these schools, okay? Sywell was about maybe 70, 30, 65, 35, something like that. And when I got to Forest Hill was about 60-40. Now, I'm saying all this, and I'm going somewhere with it. When those schools, and those schools are all thriving schools. They were great schools. They did really, really, really well. But when those schools, or the appearance that those schools were failing schools, because I want you to understand that there was no idea or no concept of a failing school until 2001. And I say 2001 because that's when No Child Left Behind showed up on the scene. So when No Child Left Behind shows up on the scene, now all of a sudden there is accountability. There are accountability in curriculum, and we call it high stakes testing. Well, a lot of things were happening, and I'm not going to get into the politics and the speculation and my conspiracies. But what I will state in the vein that once those particular schools were now beginning to be seen as failing schools, because by the time I graduated from Forest Hill, Forest Hill had probably shifted to where it was almost half and half, black and white. Well, this this population shift in those schools also started to see folks begin to leave. All right. People start moving away. They start moving out. And the people who were moving out were young white families. OK, now stay with me, because they weren't the only ones, but they were the ones who left first. Young white families. Later on, black folks who could, then they left. They went to Byram. They went to Ridgeland. They went to Germantown and places like that. But once that starts happening, once you start saying that the schools are failing, you disrupt the stability of a middle income economic base. You disrupt that, because who are we talking about? We're talking about young couples with children. Where does every couple, every parent, every mama, I don't care how poor, I don't care if they're on drugs, I don't care. If they're black, if they're white, Republican, Democrat, nothing, libertarian, we all declare that we want our children to have a solid education. These are the things that we have in common. Well, when you disrupt the school system, and now the school system becomes fragile, it's not as much about who I don't want my children sitting next to, as much as it is in some cases. And now, don't get me wrong, racism is what it is. I'm talking about the practicality and the nuances that come as a result of this stuff, the nuances that happen that we don't see, that we preach about, we talk about, because we always think about gentrification in terms of property and real estate, and all that happens. But you can't impact the real estate until you disrupt the economic image and outlook of a particular place. Well, how do I do that? I start telling folks that your children aren't going to learn here. And if I start telling you that your children aren't going to learn here, then you stop spending money here. You don't buy a house here. You don't hang out here. You don't invest in, because see, listen now, when people are in a place and they're young families, and they got children, you know what those folks typically do? They typically fireproof their neighborhood. What do I mean? I mean that they typically form neighborhood groups and neighborhood watches and all the why? Because of the children. Because of the children. When you move those people out, there's nobody in the community now who's got a mindset that's about the protection, the oversight, the well-being of the community anymore. Why? Because the people who think like that, who think outside and beyond themselves, are typically parents. All right, so we get y'all to move out. Y'all left. And I want you to understand, I'm not coming for anybody who leaves or who left. That's your business. I am old enough now to know that you don't lump a bunch of people in one box and judge their decisions, because you don't know the circumstances that led there. I'll never be so self-righteous that I'll point my finger and blame somebody for leaving Jackson. Okay? But the point is that this stuff starts at the door of our educational edifices. It starts on President Street, down there at the boardroom, down there where the superintendent and his team meets to plan for the academic success of our children. Now, I told you that that's where gentrification begins. Well, not only is that where gentrification begins, but it is literally where gentrification gets its gasoline. Okay? It gets fuel for the fire as soon as schools are now seen as failing schools. All right? Because once the schools fail, people start to leave. When people leave, there's no upkeep of property. When there's no upkeep of property, then it invites all kinds of things and undesirables and those kinds of things that threaten the welfare of the community. And so then you end up with a school like we had. I think it was George. I want to say it was George. And y'all help me if I'm wrong. Y'all type it in, call in, whatever you want to do if I'm wrong. But we had a school that for at least 7 or 8 years straight, it was always a level 5, an A-rated school right over there in the hood. It could not get the kind of traction in terms of its popularity as other schools. Why? Because the process that leads to gentrification had already begun, and that was in urban decay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get ready to take a break. We come back, I want to engage you to be a part of the conversation. We're going to dive into this stuff on TANF for a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the water crisis, and then we're going to see if we can try to make sense of some direction and how we go forward. See you on the other side of the break. I'm looking forward to having you back. Don't go anywhere.
Let's read and learn together. Meet Mason. Written by Sherry Tate. Illustrated by David. Mason is a young, inspired learner. Walk with him as he uses his 5 senses to explore the world around him. Your young one can learn to identify shapes, numbers, letters, and more with Meet Mason. Available now on Amazon.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the buffet with Tony Yarber. We are live in the studio. We believe digitalstudios.com. We believe digital podcasts. What a really good time to be around and to be alive, because we're getting to see a lot of kind of things unfold. Oh my goodness. Before we jump in, I want to just quickly plug the Mississippi Link has an article, and it is on the first page. It continues on page 2, and I'm bringing this up because it's something that's dear to me. Today, I had an opportunity to attend an event at the Medical Mall. The Mississippi Link reports major display of AIDS memorial quilt honoring Black and brown lives lost to AIDS. First time public viewing. There is right now, and I was at the Medical Mall. My bride had to sing for this event, and so it was really sobering, and it was a really good time for me to just kind of sit in some emotions and some feelings that I hadn't really wrestled with in a while. I had my oldest sister and her son. They both died from AIDS-related complications, and so I had not had to sit in that in some time. And so we're grateful for the work that's going on. We're grateful for what's happening around AIDS education, AIDS awareness. Shout out to Otha Kane and Dr. Amy Nunn for the work that they're doing around faith in action. And so that's one of the things one of the issues that I'll definitely continue to engage, and we're grateful for Mississippi Link for making a really big deal out of that event. All right. We back. I want to. There was this past week, a lot of light was shed on a young man, 25 years old, who was shot in the city of Jackson by Capitol Police. Now, all I want to say is I don't be on this show prophesying, but I sure be talking about some stuff I know, okay? I want us to revisit a conversation that we had, maybe the first or second, maybe the third show. In this show, I talked about the establishment of the Capital Complex Improvement District, and I specifically spoke around law enforcement, how a portion of that legislation was established to create a law enforcement arm, along with an infrastructure arm for funding. And I said then, because the commissioner and the Capitol Police Chief, along with the Chief of Police of Jackson, the city of Jackson, had not talked. There had not been a plan worked out. And this was a big deal, if you recall, because there were calls that were going to JPD dispatch, and there was no coordination among Capitol Police and JPD. And because of that, calls were going unserviced. And if they were getting service, they were getting service late. Now, I don't know details about what happened to the young man. I wasn't there. I haven't even seen anything that remotely makes me comfortable to even talk about it out loud. But what I do know is that it is clear that there's still no MOU in place. There's still no interlocal agreement in place. It is clear. And if I'm wrong, correct me. But if that is in place, then there should also be some understanding of these two agencies' SOPs, their standard operating procedures. There should be some understanding about that. And we ought to be able to have that conversation so that we can understand and know what's going on, what's happening. And we don't know. Kenneth Stokes said something the other day, made real good sense to me. He said, where there's already strained trust in the community when it comes to law enforcement, there has to be proactivity on behalf of law enforcement to engage that problem. And I think in a lot of cases, because it's the work that we're engaged in, whether it's you're a teacher, you're going to be sensitive when folks come for teachers. If you're a police officer, you're going to be sensitive when people call you on. I get all of that. I'm not blind. I'm not blind to any of that. But I think that at some point we've got to address when we are part of the problem when folks don't trust us. Not just police, but the media. The media will not admit they will dog Donald Trump. They will, and I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I think he's the worst kind of human that's ever been created. However, I think that the media has to own the fact that they gave Donald Trump everything he needed to be able to declare fake news. And here's the thing. Everybody's wondering, well, why is it that black men are flocking to Donald Trump? Well, because black men, let me tell you something, because I talk to these brothers, and I also, myself personally, I kind of get it. And here's why. Donald Trump, you know, it only happens when white folks say stuff, right? Donald Trump is literally saying everything about the media, everything about law enforcement and the FBI, everything about U.S. Military involvement. He's saying everything black folks been saying forever. We've been saying the news was fake. We've been doing that. We've been saying that since y'all only show certain black folks on TV. But see, the news you won't deal with that because that's a mess you created. I know you don't like this kind of teaching, but you created that. You gave Donald Trump that ability. So all I'm saying is that we got to start owning stuff so that we can look at it and address. All right, here's where I contributed to this folly. Here's why I contributed to this issue. I hope that make real good sense, because as Kenneth Stokes said, we got to address the distrust. But if you don't look and see that you are part of the reason why there is distrust, then there's never any real motivation for you to try to get the folk that you're trying to serve and protect over that. Okay. Look, I think it only makes sense that we end the show last few minutes. That we end the show with the conversation about the latest in the water saga. All right, the latest in the water saga. The mayor, along with other city leaders and members of the Poor People's Campaign and others, gathered the other day. And I don't know if the mayor said this in this particular meeting, but the mayor said in response to the governor of the state of Mississippi was asked about the city of Jackson controlling the water and sewer in Jackson. And the governor said he doesn't see that happening, especially not soon. Well, a group of citizens have now launched a campaign to try to keep the city's enterprise. But the mayor has said, don't trust the state when it comes to this stuff. And I can't say that I disagree with the mayor. I cannot say I disagree with the mayor. Listen. Earlier at the top of the show, I told you that education was the beginning. It was the beginning. When education is in a particular place is perceived to be failing, it's the beginning of gentrification. You want to know when gentrification is solidified? Y'all write this down. Gentrification is solidified when it's been codified. What does that mean, y'all? I'm glad you asked. Gentrification is solidified when they start making rules and laws that create systems that divert economic or divert finances and money away from the people in that community and into the hands of other people who are now responsible for rebuilding said community. So when you privatize, the state of Mississippi says that they're going to privatize, you got to understand that they're also going to raise rates. But see, raising rates, that's going to get everybody. Your own city council is going to have to raise rates. And that's why it's important that, number one, we start as a citizenry. We need politicians to have. We need them to be practical. We need politicians who are practical, and we need them to then be able to relay that practicality to us in honesty. If you're going to borrow money to pave the streets, tell us what the terms of the bond are. Tell us. If you're going to have to raise rates and you're going to have to do it over a certain amount, tell us that. Don't come out talking about, we're getting streets paved. Hallelujah. And everybody's clapping and shouting, but they don't know that they're taking on new debt. We need folks who will be practical, who aren't afraid of what bad politics look like. And they'll get out of retail politics trying to make people feel good about a bad situation. We're in a bad situation in Jackson. And the only way that you should be trying to make folks feel good is by showing them a plan, funding for that plan, where those resources are coming from, and who you're bringing to the table to make that happen. The gentrification grab, it is always solidified. Hear me and hear me well, and we're about to be out of here. I got 2 more minutes. It is going to be solidified when laws are created that intentionally divert resources. We're sounding the alarm, man. We are sounding the alarm that everything that Tisdale and them talked about 35, 40 years ago, everything that Kirks and them, everything that all of these men, all of these fighters and warriors have been talking about the direction of Jackson. We're here. We're there. And we're going to have to have some real practical politicians who really understand what politics is, who know how to go in and work the hoops of politics in some cases, because that's why I was sending you there. And then on the other side of that, family, we can't even receive from those kind of politicians if we don't really want truth. If we got an issue with truth, if we got an issue with folks telling us, hey, you need to get the pipes fixed before you start paving all those streets. If you got an issue with folks saying, listen, we really got to get this water distribution system taken care of. And I promise you that we're going to start getting streets back. When folks are telling you, listen, we're going to be able to, we've got to build a new plant, but here's what that looks like in honesty. Okay? That's got to happen. That's got to happen. We got to stop giving these folks a way in. A way in. Had the man not had to save us, and I'm not saying that that's anybody's fault. Frankly, I'm saying that it's partially by design. I'm going to get out of there. Listen, I'm getting ready to go. I want to encourage those of you who have been tuning in, keep doing that. Share. I want to ask that you send this to somebody, send it to 3 people that you know who's really interested in understanding what's happening around here. Real intelligent commentary that gets our minds in the right place so that we can build a better situation for our lives, our family, and our communities. Blessings on you. I'll see you next time, next week, same time, same place. God bless y'all.